Hey everyone, welcome back to Shop Life. So I've got a few announcements to make before I start with the whole video. First things first, I've been getting a lot of requests ever since I actually started getting a few subscribers on the channel itself about selling stuff and creating a website with like t-shirts and stuff like that. So I finally created the websites. I've got a few designs for t-shirts. They're up on the website right now. Right now I'm only shipping to the United States. So just go check out the website. Pretty soon I'm going to have decals listed up as well as all of the parts that I sell. I'm going to start listing all of that on there as well. So make sure to go check it out. Once again, that's ShopLifeTV.com. So if you guys have any questions about my life or anything in general like that, I'm not talking about any car related questions in terms of like if your car is broken, not those questions, just questions that I can do like a Q&A video on, so that way you guys can get a few answers. Just make sure you leave comments down below and I'll be doing a Q&A video, or I'll post it on my vlog channel where I pretty much just do like a vlog of whatever I'm doing that day. We post every couple of days on there depending on how much content we get. So make sure to go check out that channel as well. It's called Shop Life Vlogs. So we're also doing an LS swap currently. That's going to be on my girlfriend's channel because she's doing most of the work. Her channel is BMW Selena, which will be linked down below as well. So another announcement that I need to make that I've never actually officially made on the channel is I do own my own shop. It's in Alhambra, California. I pretty much do any modification, maintenance work that you need. I do not do any body work, but pretty much everything else, I can take care of it. So make sure if you guys have any work that you guys need to get done, just give me a call or message me on Instagram first. I only do appointments. I do not take any walk-in clients. Now with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into the video. So today's video is going to explain how I got into cars. I know I've mentioned it here and there in some videos, but this video is just going to tell everything about how I got into cars and pretty much what started all of this. So I picked up my first wrench approximately 4 years ago, and I mean that literally means my first wrench. None of my family is into cars. Everybody was driving Civics and Camrys before I got into cars, and I've never even had a socket set at home to play with. So it's not like I had someone that I was looking at that I started learning to work on cars at an early age or anything like that. It's only been 4 years, and for that may seem like a very short time, but when you're doing everything hands-on, you can learn a lot really quickly. So I've always been a quick learner, and before I even actually was working on cars, I started working on technology when I was in 6th grade. So what I was doing was I was repairing computers, Xboxes, PS3s, cell phones, security systems, and stuff like that. I was doing it for individuals, businesses. So I was doing that when I was like in 6th grade going into 7th. And I was doing that pretty much whenever I wasn't in school, that's what I was doing. So I've always picked up things really quickly, just picked everything up, started tearing it apart, and figured out how everything works and started doing it. So the first things first, the main reason I got into cars was because of my first car, which is Snowflake, as many of you guys know. It's the white E46 with the S54 swap. And that's pretty much was the basis for this whole channel. And I got the car when I was 16, and it was pretty cheap. It was a 2001 330i with like 166,000 miles. It was like $6,000, so it wasn't too expensive. It may seem like it's a pretty expensive car, but for the same price, you can literally get a Civic or a Camry. Obviously the Civic or Camry is going to be a lot more reliable, which I learned, and which is what actually started the whole passion about working on cars. So when I got the car, the main reason I even got a car when I was 16 was because I was dual enrolled in high school and college classes. So I actually had to drive to a different campus, and there was no school bus that would go there. It was like 45 minutes away from my house. So that's the main reason I even got a car to begin with. I mean, it was amazing. I was so excited. The car actually came with like 19-inch wheels and stuff. It looked really bad, and I was trying to put it back to stock even before like I really knew much about cars. In terms of looking at cars and stuff, I've always been interested in cars, but never really, got into working on them or ever thought about that. My goal while I was growing up was always to be in the technology field, doing computer science or something like that. Once I got the car, everything started changing. So the biggest thing that started the whole change process from going from technology into like full-time cars was the first time when I had to get an oil change. So I got the car, I got it from a used car dealer. The guy told me, we just did all the oil change and all that. But I figured that I should at least do an oil change because I don't know what they use or anything like that. And I was starting to research about the car. I found E46 Fanatics, where the E46 is so well documented, and I realized that the oil should be like, Mobil 1 or something like that. So I called around a few shops and figured out like who can do the oil change. And I asked them how much it was going to be. So the price that I got was like $120. And mind you, my family was always into Civics and Camry. Well, not really into it. That's all we got because that's reliable. And an oil change on a Civic or Camry, you just get the $19.99 coupon for Firestone and you go there. So for $20, you get an oil change. And now I'm getting charged $120, and that really, set off a lot of bells. I'm like, that's crazy. So then I started, got on the forums again, figured out how to do oil change and stuff like that. That's when I went and got my first socket set. I did an oil change. I used the emergency ramp and used the socket set, got the drain pans from Dollar Tree, and did the oil change. So that's what started the whole, starting to DIY. That's what started it. And then the next step after that was probably a month later. I'm 16, I've got bass turned all the way up, the car's bumping, I'm listening to, I think it was probably 2 Chainz at the time, and my speaker blows out. It starts rattling like crazy. And like I said, I'm into technology at that time. I was working on people's stuff, I was fixing stuff, and I knew Craigslist. That's where most of my customer base was from Craigslist. So I got on Craigslist, typed in speakers for 2001 330i, and then I found this guy named Brad, who was probably about 25 minutes from my house at the time, and he was parting out cars. I didn't know he was parting out a lot of cars out of his house, but he did have a speaker. I called him, he said $10. I went to get the speaker, and once I got there, I was truly like, my mind was blown. Next to the house was a detached garage, and there was another barn in the backyard. In the barn, there were cars. In the garage, he was stripping a car at the time, and he had another shed with parts and stuff, and then his whole driveway was lined up with, wrecked cars. And they're all Beamers or Mercedes-Benz, and I was so intrigued, and I started talking to the guy, and I was able to work out a deal with him. I was like, he gave me the speaker for $10, and I told him, is there any way that, I can come over here and, do a few things on my car? Because he had all the tools and stuff, so I wanted to use his tools, and I'm like, I'll trade you for any of your computer services. So I was able to wire his whole network in and fix up his computers and stuff, and he told me, you can work on your car as much as you want over here, just give me a call or whatever, stop by. You can use my tools and everything, but I'm not gonna help you unless you mess something up. So if you break something completely, you can't fix it, that's when you come get me and I'll help you out. That's what said it all. And I was always, like I said, I was always a quick learner. I was able to take things apart and figure it out. So I started going to his house every weekend. I would just do general maintenance. I was doing like spark plugs, ignition coils, vacuum lines, suspension stuff. So I started doing all that, and I was starting to really love it. So whenever I wasn't at school, on the weekends, I would go to his place. I was still doing the technology stuff, so I was still making money there. Then after that, I was like, I've learned a lot. It's been about 6 months. I started to go to Harbor Freight, and I started buying all my tools. And I probably spent a good $500-600 in tools just to get everything I need. I even got like a cherry picker, socket sets, jacks, jack stands, all that stuff. I got it all, and then I'm like, now what? I mean, I've already done a lot of maintenance on my car, and at that time, I wasn't ready. Like, I didn't know how everything worked to start doing like, swaps or anything like that. So then I got on Copart, and Brad told me about Copart. That's where he was buying his parts cars from. I bought 3 cars that were completely totaled. One was like a E60, Infiniti G35, and a Ford Fusion, just for the hell of it, because it was going cheap. So I bought all 3 of those cars, got them towed to the house, and I started tearing them apart. I parted them out. I figured out how everything was working, took things apart, put it back together. But I figured out how everything works, like for the main gist of it. So how the drive shaft, the transmission, the engine, how everything's bolted up, how it's mounted, like the electronics in the car. Obviously, I didn't know everything, like everything, but I did learn a lot. And once I finished parting those cars out, I decided to actually buy another car, which was stick shift, because Snowflake was automatic. So I bought a 2002 330i that was 5-speed manual. It was Oxford green on the natural brown interior, and it was wrecked on the front passenger side. So I bought that car off of Copart, and I'm like, you know what? This is gonna be my car now because it's stick shift. I fixed it up, and then I learned how to drive stick shift on there. And as soon as I learned how to drive stick shift, like enough for me not to stall out, I put Snowflake up for sale. That was a love and hate thing. And, I was so excited for learning how to drive stick, and I was still sad that, Snowflake was about to be sold. And it did sell pretty quickly, but then I had my 5-speed manual car. So I kept driving that. After that, I still bought a few more cars to part out. When I was always working on something in the driveway. And that's when neighbors started noticing. I'm sure they were noticing before too, but they really started getting, irritated with me working on cars, having parts cars that were all totaled and stuff in the parking lot. Parking lot would always be packed with cars, other people coming over and stuff like that. So they called the HOA and the city zoning people. They started coming out and, they started trying to find me. They're like, if you don't get rid of all this stuff, we're gonna have to start towing things out on our own and all that crap. You know how the HOA is. So that happened. And at that time, it had been almost about a year since I was working on cars. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna look for a place. So I got on Craigslist again. It didn't happen overnight. So I started out, I found a perfect spot. It was 9,000 square feet. It was like 5 minutes from the house. It would have been perfect. But as you guys, I'm not sure if you guys know, but I'm Indian. And any like any Asian parent, Indian parent, education is the most important thing in your life. So my grandparents and all my other family, everybody was against me getting a shop. They were already against me working on technology at the time because I was spending so much time doing that they thought I wasn't focusing on school. Then cars, that's even worse because I was getting a shop, and that's like, paying rent over there, and then I would be there a lot. And everybody was set on like, no, you're not getting a shop, you're not getting a shop. You need to do school first. Once you graduate college, then you can do whatever you want. But for me, I've always been very stubborn. If I want something, I'm gonna go get it. I never really had any handouts. I've never been handed out anything. If I wanted something, I knew I had to work for it, and I went and got it. So the first shop that was 9,000 square feet, I had to let it go because everybody was on my case at the time. But I didn't give up. I kept looking on Craigslist, and I finally found a spot that was like 30 minutes from my house. It was relatively small. It wasn't too expensive. So I contacted them. I went over there like after school one day. I went and checked it out, and I ended up signing a lease. Nobody knew about this. Only people that knew was my mom and dad. My mom and dad, they've always been very cool. They've worked hard for almost all of their lives. My dad's worked 2 to 3 jobs at a time. My mom's worked 2 jobs at a time. They know that no matter what I do, I always set my mind to it, and I always try to cover all bases. So even when I was doing technology, I always got straight A's in school. I was always doing very well in school, and I was still keeping up with, doing all the customer stuff. So they knew that even if I got the shop, my education would still be a priority. At this time, I had just became a senior in high school, and I was doing the dual enrollment, like I said, so I was still taking college classes. I was well on my way to an associate's degree, so I was doing very well in school. There was no question about that. And the main reason we even got the shop was so I can get all the junk out from the house, so we could stop getting the HOA violations and all that. So I moved all of the cars to the shop that I got. Then the itch started. I had extra space. I'm like, man, I've got all this space. So what did I do? I went and bought more cars. So I bought more parts cars. That's when I started parting E46s. So I got E46s and G35s. That was always that's what I made my money on, was G35s and E46s because I liked E46s and I wanted parts for my car. So if I saw something on a car, like on an interior, like a trim that I wanted, I would buy the whole car so I could have that trim for my car. If I saw like an interior that I wanted or some piece or like a bumper or something, I would buy the whole car and then get the parts that I wanted and then sell the rest. And the G35s was just so I could make money, and they were selling really well. But all that set aside, I finally had the courage to attempt a swap. That was my first time I wanted to attempt a swap. And this was not in Snowflake. I had already sold Snowflake. I had my green 02 330i. So I went and bought a totaled M3. I've got a whole forum post on this, which I'll link down below. And I bought the M3. It was completely totaled, and I started the swap. I finished the swap literally in, I think it was about 2 weeks during spring break and a little bit ahead. So it was about 2 weeks. And I finished the whole swap. I was excited. I learned how to do all the coding, learned how to do all that, and I had a swapped car. At that time, I didn't have YouTube going or anything like that. I was still in high school. So once that was done, it was time for me to graduate high school. And after that, you know what comes after high school? College. And that's where I wanted to personally go to college. It wasn't like, oh, you know, I found cars, I've got my own business and stuff like that. I can just do that. I always prioritize education. I know it's very important, and it's always been a backup for me. So I got into North Carolina State University, and I got in for computer science because, as you guys know, I was always intrigued with technology at first. So I decided to do computer science. I had to make a decision. What am I going to do? Am I just going to be a normal college student, just, you know, experience the whole college life and do all that? Or am I going to get another shop? And obviously, I went and got another shop. At this point, nobody knows that I had a shop already to begin with. Nobody in my family knows that I have a shop besides my mom and dad. I was like, you know what? Nobody knows. Let's just keep it that way. Nobody's going to come. Raleigh is like 3 hours from Charlotte, where my parents live. Nobody's going to come up to Raleigh to check on me like that anyways, besides my parents. And this is a shop where you guys have seen this shop. I mean, this is where I made all my videos, beginning videos and all that. So I got the shop, went ahead and moved all my stuff there, towed all the parts that I still had and parts cars that I had, towed everything there. And that shop, I had almost, 4 acres of land. It was a 4,000 square foot shop. It was 4 times as big as my old shop, and I had all the land. So again, I had to itch it. Bought more cars, and that's when I started making all the content for everybody. And at this time, I still wasn't really taking customer cars. I knew enough. I mean, I knew enough to work on other people's cars, but I didn't want to get into all the licensing and all that stuff just yet. So I started off slowly, still did friends and family, parting out stuff, and that was always my main thing to do, was parts. And I also started fixing up cars that I would get that were like minor damage, like if it needed like a fender or a bumper or a hood or mechanical damage, started fixing those cars up and reselling them. And when this started happening, you know, I saw the potential. I was making maybe almost $2,000 profit on each car that I would fix up and sell, instead of me having to wait 4 or 5 months to recoup all my costs and get some profit on a parts car. I can just get the car, fix it up, and make $2,000 within a week or two. So I was like, you know what, this seems like a pretty good idea. And I started doing that more and more. And I was still going to school. I was a full-time student at NC State doing computer science. And at this time, I was actually going to class. Well, mostly going to class. So I would go to class, and I was taking almost 21 credits. So I still had a full schedule at school. Since I had already done my associate's degree, these classes I was taking were not just, basic general ed courses. They were all courses that were necessary for the computer science major. So they were actually pretty tough. And I had to spend time with that and spend time with the shop. And that was another reason that I didn't really try to take customer cars, because when you take customer cars, you got to finish it on a deadline. You can't have it for a month and just work on it when you want. You got to get it done. So I continued parting out, and I started taking on the friends and family cars and some used car dealers, started working on all those licenses and all that. And then I decided, you know what, I'm making enough profit on these cars that I'm selling, so let me get a used car dealer license. And that, I got the dealership and all that. That's a whole nother story for another time. If you guys want me to talk about that, just leave a comment down below and I'll try and make a video on that next. So I got the used car dealership, and it had almost been a whole year at this shop already. So my first year of college was already done. I had the dealership, I had the shop, and I was really starting to, spread myself thin. Everything was, taking a toll. It's like, I don't have enough time in the day to do everything I wanted. I decided, you know what? I'm really not as intrigued with computer science as I used to be. I mean, I was always into technology. I was still repairing technology as well, minor things. But I'm like, I want to do something that I don't have to go to school for. Like, I could just do everything online. So I decided to switch my majors into business. So pretty much that whole first year of college was useless. All the classes I took did not apply to my business degree. It had been over a year at the shop. I had the dealership. I was working on other people's cars now a little bit. I was still parting out cars. Throughout this whole time, ever since I had sold Snowflake, I always, that was the car that got me into all of this. So I always missed Snowflake. Even after the swap, the S54 swap into the green E46, I was like, this would have been amazing. If I still had Snowflake, I could have done it into there. So when I saw Snowflake in my neighborhood, I was You know, I chased it down. The dude was leaving. I drove past. I drove straight, followed him wherever he stopped. I was able to, like, you know, I talked to him. I'm like, hey, I really want to buy the car back. Is there any way for me to buy it back? He's like, yeah, I mean, I'll give it to you. I mean, I get comments on this car, compliments on this car still every day. So obviously he knew I wanted it really bad. He didn't drive it much, but it was completely torn up. I mean, the bumpers were all falling off. It looked really bad. It wasn't kept up like I had kept it up. And if you guys want to see the condition when I got it back, I have a video on this. It's like my first video. It says intro to S54 swap, and I'm wearing like scrubs, look really bad. But just go check out that video, and I'll show you the condition when I got it. And then I bought it back. I traded him another car for it, another E46. So after I traded him the car, I had Snowflake back, and I still had my green E46 with S54 swap. And I started tearing that car up. I started parting that one out and took the whole S54 swap and started putting the Snowflake. And that's pretty much where all of you guys come in, because that's when I started making videos. So I did the swap, and I had made videos on it. I was getting a lot of, you know, attention for it. I mean, a lot at the time was like, you know, 50 subscribers, but I was still getting, you know, people commenting, people messaging me about it. And, you know, I was like, wow, I really did it, you know. I got my whole car back. I swapped it from an automatic to manual. You know, I'm able to do all this stuff. Like, you know, it boosted your confidence. Whenever you complete something, that's the good thing about DIY. Whenever you do something yourself, it always boosts your confidence. It makes you feel like, oh wow, I actually did that myself. And at this time, I still had the dealership, still parting out cars. And I had been almost a year and a half at the shop now. So I started looking for another place, because this one was, like I said, 30 minutes from Raleigh, which is the main city over there. And not that many people would want to bring their car all the way to Wendell, which was where my shop was at, just to get their car worked on, when there's people in Raleigh that could do it. That's when we started thinking, we're like, you know what? We've been in North Carolina all our lives. Let's go somewhere else. That's when I decided to move to California. And once I moved to California, that whole move, I've documented it a lot. I've got a lot of videos on it, a lot of vlogs. So it's been, I think, what, 8 months, maybe 10 months almost now. And I opened up my shop out here. So before we even got a place out here or anything like that, I found the shop first. The main thing I'm doing here is customer cars. I'm doing all kinds of swaps, modifications for people. I don't only work on BMWs. I work on Infinitis, Lexuses, Toyotas, Acuras, Hondas, whatever you want. I work on pretty much anything that I could get my hands on. Right now, I'm working on a 66 Mustang that we're doing a 2016 5.0 swap into, which I also have videos on. We're doing an LS swap into an E46. I've been doing 330 swaps, manual swaps, whatever you want to do. For the most part, I can handle it. I still do know my limits, though. Like, I'm not gonna take a job on that I know that I can't do. And main reason, it's only me and my girlfriend that are at the shop. We're the only ones that work here. We don't have any employees or anything like that. We don't have the time to, you know, look after employees and do all that right now with school. So it's just us two. I know my limits, and if you have any work that you guys need to get done or anything like that, feel free to, you know, message me on Instagram, contact me, whatever you want. Past 5 years of my life have been really crazy. I've learned so many new skills. And that's one thing that nobody can ever take away from me. Even if I decided to quit everything and just do school and get a job and all that, which I know I won't, but if I did, I still have this knowledge with me. And that's one thing I like to, you know, promote is learn how to do things. Even if you don't decide to DIY, like any of the videos that I make, like if you don't decide to do your own swaps and stuff and you want to get it done by somebody else, still have the knowledge. That way you're not getting ripped off. You know what the process entails, and you know, you just have a better understanding. You can always have the knowledge even if you choose not to do anything with it. So I hope this wasn't too long of a video. I've been growing a lot recently, and I want people to know that I'm not only, you know, I don't want to only make DIYs. I want to make, you know, entertaining videos for you guys as well. Share a little bit about my life. You know, if you guys have any questions and stuff like that, I want to be there and help other people out if they have any questions about doing anything that I've done before. I do not mind helping everybody out. And I can truly say that working on cars is more of a passion for me. I was able to turn my passion and my hobby into a business, which I'm very fortunate for. But it still is a passion. And I pride myself in the work that I do. And that's the biggest thing that really sets me apart from a lot of shops around here. Because in California, almost everybody is into cars. There's so many shops out here. There's so much competition. So not everybody is as passionate or as driven as I am to actually teach the customer, and not even teach, but to at least show the customer the whole process, what everything entails. You can ask any of my customers that I've had that I like to explain as much as I can. I probably do more talking to the customer about their car and about all the stuff that I've done, and I show them around than anything else. I mean, I do make all these DIYs so people know what goes behind the scenes, but whenever there's a customer here, I like for them to know about their car. And that's one thing that you'll find with me. I don't rip anybody off. I've always charged what's fair. And ever since I've been out here, I've had numerous customers tell me, hey, your prices are not really that high compared to what everybody else is charging. I'm like, I know I can charge more. But with me, it's more, I'm charging something that's reasonable. So I hope this cleared up a lot of stuff for everybody. I hope you guys got to learn a little bit about how my whole backstory in it all. And for you guys that are probably wondering, does my family know about the shop now? They actually do. Main reason they know is because of the move to California. Nobody understood. Everybody was against me moving to California. They still are. They still want me back home. But you know what? I did anyways because I set my mind to it. So that's the lesson here, guys. If you set your mind to it, you really can accomplish anything you want. There are really no boundaries. And just because I was able to, just buy wrecked cars and start taking them apart and learn how everything I did, just learning by doing, that doesn't mean that you're going to learn the same way. Everybody has different ways of learning. They do have schools where you could go to learn how to work on cars. You can always find a mentor and stuff like that. There's so many different ways for you guys to acquire skills. For me, I've always been a hands-on person and been able to learn, so that's what worked for me. It might not work for you, but there's a lot of resources out there. So I hope everybody enjoyed this video. If you guys like me rambling on, feel free to leave a comment down below. I don't mind making these kind of videos. I don't mind sharing my story and sharing my experiences with everybody. So thanks for watching. Be sure to check out ShopLifeTV.com, and if you guys have any questions or comments for a Q&A, make sure you comment down below. Thank you, everybody.